It's Wednesday the 30th of December. Will Spurs be able to hold on to a top 4 place? And will we be able to go through the next hour without mentioning the phrase title contenders? This is your e-Spurs podcast.
And I keep saying Spurs shouldn't be focused on fourth. We should be looking third, and then the worst case scenario, then look for fourth.
The fact that at the moment you're seeing, I think, a much better connection between the fans and the team because of the local boys coming through. But the one thing you've got to make sure with any local boys coming through, and we do have to be a little bit careful with it, is they've got to be the right quality that comes through.
Now we've got Harry Kane, who really has, and he sort of seems to have unlocked the door for another wave of young players. And I think that in terms of adulation or admiration, I think I'd rather have a kid come through who loves playing for Spurs. We all want to see the players playing like a fan would play, with that heart and that passion.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham, no one can stop them. We're gonna do it like we did last.
Welcome to the podcast, guys. Once again, it's been a non-stop 7 days for THFC, as it always is. Don't forget, we want you guys to get in touch with the show and get involved with the e-Spurs podcast. And if you like what you hear, there's loads of ways, as we always say, to get in touch and stay in touch with all things e-Spurs. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at @e_Spurs, on Facebook, which is /e-Spurs page, that's all one word, and on iTunes, Facebook, Google+, we're on the lot, so get in touch and stay in touch with e-Spurs. We'd also really appreciate it, guys, if you like what you hear on the show, go over to our iTunes page and leave a review on the iTunes page. Let everyone know what you think of the e-Spurs podcast. We'd really appreciate your feedback on that one. Tonight we'll be reviewing both the 3-0 win over Norwich and the 2-1 win over Watford on Monday, continuing our brand new talking point feature where we'll be asking the lads which former Spurs player they would bring back to the club. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also preview the Everton game on Sunday. So a busy show, as always, for you guys out there. But without further ado, let's introduce the guys without whom none of this will be possible. It's the e-Spurs team. It's Jason, John and Ricky. How you doing, fellas?
All right,
Good, mate.
Very well, thanks, Andy. Very well.
Good stuff, lads. Great Christmas period so far, so loads for us to catch up on and talk about in the show. As I say, there's one phrase that's banned for at least the next 5 minutes anyway, and we'll try and get through the show and hopefully give you guys out there a great hour of listening. A little bit of admin before we go on. Just to let you know, there's now a competition on the e-Spurs Twitter page at @e_Spurs, where you guys can win a replica THFC home shirt from 1983, the 1983 season. And to enter that competition, all you have to do, it's nice and simple, just follow us on Twitter at @e_Spurs and retweet the tweet that you'll see at the very top of our Twitter profile. There's a picture of the shirt on there and all the info about the shirt. It's a size medium replica shirt from 1983, and so for anyone who remembers that period, or just before the 84 UEFA Cup final, it's a great shirt to own, so get involved in that, guys. Also, you can now vote on the e-Spurs Player of the Month poll, which is now open on our website. The address for that is www.espurs, all one word, .blogspot.co.uk. I think last time I checked, it was currently being led by Eric Lamela with 36% of the vote, followed by Dembele. So get involved in that one, guys. Okay, on with the show. That's all of the admin done. Guys, it's been a great Christmas period so far, and Norwich and Watford games before the Christmas period, arguably games we would have said we would have hoped to have won. They've been out there, guys. They've done the job. They've done the business. Let's first of all go over to, I tell you what, let's go to Jace over in Thailand. Jace, Norwich game first up. John, I know, and myself were there at the Lane. Fantastic night, a great atmosphere, and they played some fantastic stuff on the night.
Yeah, played. The first 10 minutes, I thought Norwich came at us, which I like to see, because you think, right, they haven't just come to get 10 men behind a ball and make it hard. And Hugo needed to make a couple of saves, and you thought, whoa, this is probably going to be the difficult game we thought it was going to be. But once we got to grip with that, and we had that early chance, didn't we, where it looked like Eriksen's pass was going out for a goal kick, and suddenly, was it Walker or Ali came bombing from nowhere onto it? And once we'd had that, then we got the penalty, and after that it became a really straightforward game. And I thought the three up front that day, Ali, Lamela, Kane, the combination between those was there on the first two goals. They combined again when Lamela had his Rabona. There was a little Ali Lamela 1-2 where Ali went through, and just those three, the movement and the touches of those three gave Norwich all sorts of problems.
Certainly did. A great performance, as I say, John. And when Jason mentions there the front three behind Kane, that we've got the average age, there's so much potential in there. When you add Kane into that, his age, obviously, you've got a very young front four, bundles of potential. And against Norwich, they really started to show that potential, didn't they? Some silky football.
Yeah, most certainly, especially Lamela. He's just such a transformation. It's unbelievable. There were so many times during the game where I was a bit gutted they didn't show any on Match of the Day, where he'd done so many little tricks and flicks, and he put one through some legs, and Ali done it about 3 times, and it's just nice to see young footballers with they're handling the expectation and the pressure so well, and they're just able to express themselves and not play with any fear or within themselves. I think it's happening at other clubs at the moment. We're just so lucky to have the manager we got and the crop of young players that we have at the moment. It's just a joy to watch.
It certainly is. And I mean, Lamela, I can't big the guy up enough, for what he's done this season, the work rate he puts in. Apart from, I will mention, John, I'm sure you remember from the night, the chance where he went through, could have passed to Kane and didn't, and all sort of petered out. I think the hot dog that I had in my hand almost become a dangerous weapon aimed in the direction of Lamela at the time. But no, I mean, he took his goal against Watford brilliantly, didn't he? So, fantastic stuff.
He did, yeah. What makes me laugh about Eric Lamela is he's such a... There's two sides to him. He's not just there... with Eriksen, for example, I think everyone's getting on his back a little bit because he's there purely to assist and to make things tick. And when he's not doing that, he's not really doing much else. But with Lamela, he's like two players rolled into one. He's got this silky touch and the way he rolls the ball, and he's got that side to him. And then he's a nasty little bugger as well on the other side. And he's such, he recovers the ball so often, and he's good in the tackle. He's I tweeted, he's like a cross between David Ginola and Scott Parker. If them two had a love child, it'd be Eric Lamela.
Don't even want to think about that. The image I've got in my mind at the moment. But yeah, I agree with you completely. He's similar in many respects, if you like, to Dele Alli, I guess, in that he's got that temperament where he's up for a fight. He's not afraid of a tackle. Dele Alli's very similar, but he's also very good on the ball. And it's great to have two players like that are very... very similar. You say at the moment, I guess, Dele Alli's at a more advanced stage in his progression, in that he also chips in with quite a few goals, whereas Lamela, he's got, 4 in his last 5 now, so I guess you could argue that he's pretty much up there as well, but it's fantastic to see nonetheless. Rick, we mentioned just a moment ago Christian Eriksen. Seems to be going through a very quiet patch, doesn't he? He was dropped for the Watford game. What would you put his this quiet spell down to, do you think?
I'm not too sure, Andy, if I'm being honest with Eriksen. He does seem to go through purple patches where he goes on a consistent run where he does pre-assist goals, and then goes very, very quiet. I think last season we saw the late winners he got along the way to help us, and then from February on he had that dip. And I think, again, this season scored those couple of great free kicks against Swansea, and then, again, seems to be suffering a dip in form. The only thing that at the moment is covering it up for him is that players around him are taking their opportunity and playing very, very well. It's a difficult one with Eriksen because he's got the ability there. Does dropping him help? I don't know. Pochettino done that against Watford, brought him on. Didn't have a great impact. But it's difficult to put your finger on. But what you do know about Eriksen is he's a quality player. And on his day, he does have that ability to change a game. And I think as Pochettino does, he trusts all his players. And I've got no doubt at all that down the line somewhere this season, Eriksen will rediscover the form that he's renowned for, and he will score goals that will hopefully lead us along the way to a very successful season.
Yeah, let's hope so. He's never been, has he, the type of player to boss a game. I think technically he's very good. Set piece he's very good. Although I noticed Lamela started to take a few more of the corners and free kicks now, and actually really well. Eriksen drifts in and out of games. That's the frustration for me, I think. Having said that, he's also saved us on countless occasions last season, hasn't he? So, got to give the guy his due where it's his credit where it's due. Moving on to the Watford game, Jace. A different sort of game, wasn't it? A bit more of a fight in the Watford game. You'd expect that. They're in good form at the moment. Bearing in mind the praise that they're getting from pundits and fans, how impressive was the victory over Watford, do you think?
It was a really strange game. I thought for the first 35, 40 minutes, we had a lot more of the ball and were quite comfortable at times on the ball. I thought Watford would be a lot more in our faces all over the pitch than they were for 40 minutes. And they were kind of standing off us for a time, bit too much respect probably from their point of view. And you thought, well, we've had enough of this game really to be more than 1-0 in front. And just after we scored, there was the other great chance for Lamela, wasn't there? Only seemed like within a minute or two when Kane cut it back. And I thought, well, this is going a lot better than I thought it was going to go, having watched them play Liverpool. But then once Ighohalu got the goal where he made Eric Dyer look awful, didn't he? After that, it became a totally different game. That lifted them, and from that moment on, I think you saw the value or the true Watford come in, and the sending off was a strange one. I think we're talking before the show came on, and we probably think it probably was the right decision, but when on first viewing and that, I think everyone was a bit stunned when the red card came out, and I was really worried then how we played after the sending off, because we started to get panicky, whether we felt the pressure a little bit of we now have to go on and win this game. And there was the last 10 minutes we were starting to hang on, and he was really worried about us at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised, to be honest, that he hadn't thought about bringing Chadley on, because we all know Chadley's got a goal in him, and he didn't come on till very, very late, did he? And it just so happens that he brought Son on, so credit where it's due again. He made the right decision completely there, and it worked out. But I mean, John, it almost, as Jace mentioned there, after the sending off, it almost become a harder game, and we've seen that so many times after a red card, haven't we?
Yeah, most definitely. I think we was talking about it before and saying that the dynamic of the game is changed so often by a red card. You get the team that goes down to 10 men will just defend for their lives, and it becomes a bit of a war of attrition between defence and attack. But it was a bit different to that. It seemed like we were the ones that were like, oh shit, we've got to do something now. As opposed to them, I think Watford dealt with the red card very well, and they were still a threat. And it's just the way the game ended was just so brilliant. I mean, we could have been 2-1 down and out of it, and all of a sudden we're up the other end and we're winning the game. And it's been such a crazy season, and I think that last sort of period of the game there just shows how ridiculous this Premier League season has been so far. It was just brilliant after the Newcastle game, getting stunned with a last minute one to come back and us do it for a change.
Yeah, it's lovely to see him. I mean, the thing that's pleased me more than anything from this week is the results of other teams. I mean, normally when Spurs go through a nice little patch like this, lads, it's normally every other result goes against us, doesn't it? But this week, for some reason, I don't know who's trotting what this week, but everything seems to have, touch wood, gone our way so far. So it's
Ricky, isn't it? Well, it's Ricky, because he was saying about the Tongans and all that, and then the next week he played amazing against Southampton, and then last week he's going, 9 points behind Leicester we are, that's a bit much, and now it's 4. So you carry on, Rick, mate, carry on.
No, I have to hold my hands up. But even with Son, the week before I said Son, he's not a game changer, and he goes and does that in the 93rd minute against 89th minute against Watford and wins us the points. So listen, as a fan, I'm always happy to hold my hands up when players go on and do something against what I've said. So it's great to see. I keep saying it. Any Spurs fan now, if you can't enjoy the run we're on, I don't think you ever can. I'm pinching myself to see where we're at the moment in the league. It's a wonderful position we've got ourselves into, and like you boys have alluded to, the 2 games that we had on paper, we both said, these games that we should be winning, and the most important thing is that we've got the points. And I think, again, it's that kind of, you don't want to get too carried away, but admittedly inside I am. I think, again, it's kind of trying to take each game as it comes and not try and overthink and look too far forward. Like you said there, Andy, some of the results have gone for us in terms of United dropping points, Chelsea dropping points. I still consider Chelsea to be a threat, even though they're so far behind as what they are.
Do you, Rick? I mean, do you think they can make up, what is it, 15 points? Do you think they can make that up between now and the end of the season?
Well, I know it sounds crazy. That 15 points does sound absolutely mental, but Leicester had 9 points last week. We've skimmed it down to 4. I just think a squad, what Chelsea have got there in terms of the stars they've assembled, you have to think at some point they're going to put a run together. But at the same time, Spurs, we've only lost 2 games in 19. We've got the best defensive record in the league. We've got the best goal difference in the league. A lot of things are playing into our hand for us. But I keep saying, as a Spurs fan, the most important thing we can do is focus on ourselves and not worry about the teams around us. And we did say what we wanted to see is the test of character. When we suffered that Newcastle defeat, how we would bounce back. We've won 3 on the trot. You can't ask for a better response than what the players have given. And just those celebrations against Watford, if you ever wanted to see a more unified fan base and more unified squad in general, it's just, you have to pinch yourself. It's the most exciting time to be a Spurs fan I can remember in years. And I'm just, every game now you're looking forward to it. You want to see what's going to happen. You want to see what we're going to do. And I think with the Watford game especially, the fact that Pochettino changed the formation in terms of obviously having that 3 at the back, and he had said himself he had very little time to work on that. 48 hours is nothing. And the fact that the players grasped it, he made reference and said, we've got very, very clever players at this football club. We might not have world class, but what we have got is players that are willing to listen. And that, again, comes down to the fact that it's a very, very young squad. They're willing to listen to Pochettino. Every interview every player gives, none of them are coming across that they're getting carried away. All of them are saying it's all about focusing on the next game, which is great to hear. No one's getting carried away. It's not a squad full of prima donnas. It's just a fantastic time to be a Spurs fan at the moment, and it's hard not to get carried away.
It really highlights how they're listening to him, Ricky, as well, doesn't it? That, as you say, 48 hours and he comes up with a new plan and the players just get on with it and react. There's none of this. You could see there's none of this, was this the right thing? Or, we're not like Louis van Gaal that's got to have 18 months to get a philosophy across to somebody. I mean, they just went straight out and got on with the plan.
Well, the thing is, just to say, boys, that could have easily been us. LVG, that could have easily been us. And at the time, just to quickly say that, but many people at the time thought Pochettino maybe wasn't the right choice for us, and many called for LVG, and many saw it as a failure, the fact that we didn't get him. And you look at it now and just think, wow, that's a real bullet dodge, because I think any fan out there, Tottenham fan, could see that LVG and Spurs, that would have been a disaster waiting to happen. I dare think he would have got 6 months at Spurs, just purely because some of the things he says, I don't know if it's lost in translation, but Pochettino at the moment just can't seem to say anything wrong. It's just a wonderful time.
No, and I've seen on Twitter, Rick, a couple of the quotes that you've pointed out this week. Talking very sensibly, isn't he? Very level-headedly, but also not killing the ambition in there. He's also been talking as if he is a very, very ambitious guy, wants to win things with Spurs. We saw a news article a couple of days ago where he sort of laughingly quashed any rumours of going elsewhere, and then he went on to talk about wanting to build a legacy at Spurs, which is exactly what we want to hear from a Spurs manager, isn't it? Which is fantastic. Just want to pick you up on the point you made about Son. I was exactly the same last week, Rick. I am completely guilty of saying that he doesn't take his chances as well. So it shows what I know about football. And Pochettino also. I mean, a couple of months back, we was all, saying he doesn't change his formation. He's very rigid in his formation. I was also saying that on the show, and he goes and pulls a rabbit out of the hat like that. So it's just fantastic to see, isn't it, at the moment? I think, as you say, the guy can do no wrong. Jace, let's do it. Let's mention the immortal words. I'm going to ask you to answer this with your head and not your heart, if you can, mate. Spurs title contenders?
Technically, yes, because you're in the top 4 and a couple of points off top spot. So you have to say, as at today, they're contenders. It's a different question if you said to me, do you think we'd win it? But, I mean, we have been here before, haven't we? A couple of years ago under Harry, when we went to Manchester City that week. I think if we'd have won at Manchester City that day, we were only then 2 points behind them and second. And, we all know what happened after that.
Is this not? Do you think, Jace, a stronger squad than we had under Harry?
I think it's certainly more of a genuine team effort. I mean, the side under Harry, you certainly had uncertainty with, is Ledley going to play this week or is Ledley not going to play? And that created problems at the back. There was perhaps a little bit more rashness with one or two players, but then there was also those little bits of individual brilliance that Bow and people like that brought you. So, but there's certainly more of a team effort, and I think, you know, that durability that's in this side is the best that I've known for a long, long time.
Certainly, isn't it? They look as if they're playing together, don't they? I mean, I can't remember having seen any friction between players on the pitch. Usually at one point during the season, you get a camera shot of a couple of defenders having a Barney, or, you get an idea there's maybe a little bit of friction in the camp, but absolutely fantastic. And again, I'm touching wood here. All seems to be going very, very well, doesn't it? Injuries, again, going very, very well. Having said that, obviously, slight worry in Dembele recently. I know Ng's out for a while. Not as big a worry as Dembele, having said that, because Dembele's been arguably one of the players of the season so far. John, too good to be true, isn't it, almost?
Well, I think, we've waited long enough for it, haven't we? And I think, like Ricky was saying, it's hard not to get carried away. And I think that's just... I'm so loving it at the minute. It's just difficult not to get carried away. And if I can answer the question you asked to Jace, I think we've got to be title contenders without any shadow of a doubt. 4 points off the top halfway through the season. The only thing that might count against us, it will be, being in Europe, and we've got the FA Cup to come. But just let us dream. Go on, you Spurs.
To dare is to do, eh, John? To dare is to do, mate.
Exactly, mate. We get fed all this stuff because of the rich history and the glories of days gone by that this club has had. And it's about time that we've created some new ones, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, you sit there, didn't you? I was sitting there against Norwich watching the video that they play on the screen before the game. You've got, Trigger doing the voiceover of that montage. Fantastic. Some of the great moments in there. And it's been, 24 years since we won, if you discount the League Cup as a major trophy, 24 years since we won what I'd call a major trophy in the FA Cup. It's far too long for a club of this size. And you're sort of stuck in between a rock and a hard place, aren't you? In that you don't want to get too carried away, because after all, this is Spurs, and we're the king of making things look difficult. But also, it could be. It's a strange old season. You see Arsenal slipping up, Liverpool still not firing under their new manager. You've got Man City.
I think that's the thing that gives that gives you more hope as well. It's not like there's been. It's not like it usually is. It's not like when in Spain where you've got 2 or 3 teams running away with it. Like PSG are like 20 points ahead, I think. You know what I mean? Whereas in this country and this season, it's just been so, teams dropping points to teams they shouldn't really be doing it against, and bigger clubs like Aston Villa haven't won in 18 games. You know what I mean? It's just been such a strange season, and I think this may be the one where, you get the odd weird FA Cup year where you end up with Cardiff in the final and Portsmouth and teams like that, but it doesn't really have that madness doesn't transpire to the league. And I think this year, is the one year where it has, and why can't it be us? I think that's the thing that I keep asking myself. Why not? There's absolutely no reason why. If all the things you've said already about injuries and form, and if that doesn't falter, then why not? I think the other thing is as well. You said about one of the guys said about players falling out of each other. I think the thing is this year we've got is like a group of mates. That's how it looks to me. Like they're playing with their friends, and you've got Toby and Jan at centre half, who are obviously good mates, and Eric Dyer and Dele Alli seem to be like really close. And you've got bonds and partnerships and all over the team, and it doesn't seem clicky at all. And I think it's all credit to the manager that it is that way. So yeah, why not?
Why not? Absolutely.
Like we said, let's be. Let us dream, and you never know. You never know. Like the famous quote goes about even failure will have in it an echo of glory. If we're going to go for the title and we finish third, that's still an amazing season. So why not?
Well, look, mate, who'd have thought, before the season began, even a couple of months back, we was talking about top 4 as unrealistic, weren't we? So, blimey, the fact that we're even where we are in the league at the moment is fantastic. And yeah, you could argue, I guess, that other clubs aren't at the top of their game, but you can only play against what you're given, can't you? You can only face what you're given. And you might argue.
Well, exactly.
You might argue in some respects, mate, that facing a side like Watford, who are fighting for everything, they're buoyant at the moment. In some respects, that's a lot harder than facing, say I don't know, an Everton when they're at the top of their game. In a normal.
Well, yeah. Season. I mean, we saw that. I think with the two games we played recently. Excuse me. They were two very, very different games. In as much as with Norwich, I just felt like we tickled their belly a little bit to start with, and then thought, right, we'll have this now. And we really did just rolled all over them. I felt there weren't any point in the game where I felt worried that we might not win. Whereas with Watford, it was completely different. It was so much more of a scrap. We had to fight and contest for every single ball, and we weren't playing on a carpet of a pitch like we do when we play at home. And I think all those things, I think that's why I'm so hopeful, and I think this is why this is going to be a memorable season for us. We just tick every box at the minute. We're up for a fight when we need to, and we've got classy players who can play teams off the pitch. And like I said, the last two games really showed both of those sides of it. And I think, why not? And I keep saying it, but just, I wish I could fast forward to May just to see what happens, because I feel like it's Christmas Eve and it will be all the way till May now. That's how I feel at the minute. Just so excited for each game, and hopefully this bubble doesn't get burst too soon. But just keep thinking, why not? Someone's got to win it.
I did do a mini straw poll on the Watford game. I think when Lamela scored and I started to sing in the pub, "We're going to win the league," it soon became clear I was the only one singing it. So, obviously the other few boys in there weren't too impressed by it.
If I could just say, Andy, just on your question about the title contenders, I think this is the way I look at it from my perspective. If you were to say to me, you don't name a team, if there's a team in that top 4 or 5 at the moment, they've only suffered 2 defeats, that have suffered a victory, came back with 3 straight wins, best goal difference in the league, least amount of goals conceded, youngest average age squad. But then you said to me it's Spurs, then I might have to have a bit of a reality check. But there's absolutely no reason why, like John has said, that we can't believe and we can't dream. And from my perspective, I know I've mentioned this in recent weeks, I think now is the best time to bring it up, because I want to place on record that the January window coming up now, in my opinion, is probably the most important transfer window of ENIC's ownership of the club. And the reason why I say that is, even dating back to when Redknapp had that side that we was being seen as, potential title contenders, at the time, Redknapp in that January period was kind of flirting with the England job, and we brought in Sahar and Nelson. I think this year what we've got Pochettino that's actually reaffirmed his loyalty to Spurs recently in that recent newspaper article where he said that he's very happy at the club. He wants to build a legacy at Spurs. He's not interested in going to Real Madrid because he knows the pressure of what can be there, that if you lose a game, suddenly the world wants you out. I think he wants to be at a club he can leave a legacy at, that's going to see a progression. And I just hope now that Levy shows the reward to Pochettino, what Pochettino's showing to Spurs in a way. Because let's be honest, when the window closed in August, he let him down by not getting him a recognised second striker, so that if Kane was injured, we'd have someone else to bring in. It's such a pivotal window coming up now that, in my opinion, I want to place it on record that this for me is the most important window in ENIC's ownership in terms of where we're going to see Levy's ambition for Spurs and ENIC in general, because I know we've got a stadium to save for, but let's not kid ourselves. The reason why we're saying that we could be potential title contenders is that no one's claiming the league, that no one is building up a consistent run. Yes, Leicester have had a very, very good season. Arsenal lost to Southampton. Man City, without company at the back, they look very, very ordinary. This league is so open. And that's why I say, just with a couple of tweaks in certain positions, bringing in the right players, there's no reason why this conversation we're having now, even in laughing and joking, why we can't be seen as serious title contenders. And my concern is that if we don't go for it in this window, we might regret it down the line, because I don't think we're going to get a better chance.
It's very, very well said. And, last week, lads, we was talking about Berahino, wasn't we? There was a couple of quotes from Tony Pulis. I don't know if you saw him during the week that worried me very slightly on Berahino in that I guess you have to take into account that Pulis and Berahino probably aren't the best of friends at the moment anyway, so there could be some bias in what he said in that. However, he made comments, Tony Pulis, during the week, which, reading between the lines, suggested that Berahino's not a team player, that he's unsettling the camp. I mean, you know, you probably can expect that to a certain degree because he wanted his move, didn't get it. However, Jace, bearing in mind what we said last week, does that worry you slightly in that, I mean, he might not be the type of player that Pochettino would want at Spurs, bearing in mind he's already cleared a few of those out?
It doesn't. I can understand people that would have that view, but it may well be the case that the boy is desperate to come and play for Tottenham.
Yeah.
And knows that he should be playing for Tottenham now, and he probably behind the scenes knows that Tottenham still definitely, I still think they definitely want him. So, you know, it may well be a case of him thinking, right, well, you know, I'm going to have to force my move through and make life as unpleasant as possible for people. So,
is that not concerning,
you know,
Jace,
it may
do that?
I mean, I can understand why people don't like that attitude, but you know, we've had it done to us before as well, haven't we? But yeah. I think it just shows that the boy wants to come and play for Tottenham. And at the moment, if there's a boy that's out there busting a gut to play and want to play for Tottenham, then I'd say, right, let's run with it. Yeah,
it's a great shout. Jace, does that not concern you at all that he might do that as a Spurs player? If, for example, he has a great couple of seasons and then another level club come in for him, if you like.
Well, that's a danger of that can happen. But let's see if he has the two great seasons where that next elite level of club want to come for him. I mean, you know, Tottenham may well be the plateau that he reaches, and that's the stage that he stays at. So, you know, let's not worry too far down the line. Let's just get bloody January sorted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boys, I reckon it's more Tony Pulis sort of covering his arse before it happens, if you know what I mean. I reckon, you know, if he knows the player's going to go and there might be sort of like a fan revolt because of it, then let's blame Berahino for whatever they want before. So when he does go, they can say, yeah, well, I wanted him out anyway. And I think it's also a hidden message as well to Jeremy Peace. Look, please go ahead and get some deal, because here's a bloke that we could get, let's say, even 18, 20, 25 million pounds for, that is our third choice striker, and he's sitting here, doesn't want to play. Please do a deal with someone and get rid of him. Yeah, no, spot on. It's do it early. Yeah, he's certainly got the talent, hasn't he, lads? He's, you know, we saw a couple of seasons ago, he's not been in the team at all this season, so it's unfair to judge him on what he's had this season. And we certainly need that. I mean, watching the games against Norwich and against Watford, the only concern from those would be that if Kane was to, you know, God forbid, pick up an injury, then we're stuffed, aren't we? Because you're then faced with moving the likes of maybe a Lamella up front or a Son, and as good a job they might do up there, they're not naturals, are they? So you can't go through an entire season with one striker, that's for sure. I don't think that's unreasonable to say at all. Rick, just finally on the top four chances, does the fact that we are due to move into this new stadium now, almost certainly now within 3 years, does that make finishing in the top four this season all the more crucial, do you think?
I do. I do and I don't. I just think Tottenham's expectations over the last 5 to 6 years have been of the manager to try and finish in the top four, and this season we're in a position where I personally think, you know, fourth is the least, you know, we could achieve with the squad and the way we're performing. I think the issue with Spurs is, I said this before on previous shows, we always look at fourth as the benchmark, and this season we should be looking higher, and then at the end of the season, if you fall below second, third, you end up in fourth. It's not seen as such a major disappointment. But in reflection to the stadium, I think if you're looking to be a progressive club, then you have to be aspiring to finishing those Champions League spots. And in my opinion, we're not going to get a better chance than we are this year, because simply the league is so far open. No one is holding down a sustainable challenge for the league. You're looking at us as a team. We've only lost twice. There seems to be a great, like the boys have obviously pointed out, a great unity within the squad, within the management, and everything seems to be coming together. And I keep saying it, for me it's just about going game by game, not looking too far ahead, but again just reiterating the fact that for me the January window is absolutely crucial. And just to obviously on this Berahino, boys, I just wanted to say just a couple of things only on Berahino, that the fact of the matter is the kid's young, he's pacey, he's English, he's played with Kane before, and just on the point of his attitude, I think what we need to obviously bear in mind here is that from what we understand, or from what I understand personally, is that the kid was promised, in a gentleman's agreement by Pulis that he was going to go. So it's very hard to have a move that you're being told by the manager that you're going to go, just keep under the radar, don't do anything stupid, and then suddenly for that move to be taken away by the chairman, and he's brought Rondon in, and he's being played as, he's on the bench. It's very hard, and he's not in a bad way, but he's stuck up in Birmingham as well. No offence to anyone who's from Birmingham, but he's stuck up in Birmingham. I think the kid just wants to play football, and if you look at it, would you rather be sitting on West Bromwich Albion's bench or Spurs' bench? I think any intelligent person would know the answer to that question. The kid will be involved at Spurs irregardless. We've got the Europa League coming up. We've got obviously the FA Cup, which he won't be cup tied for, and he won't be obviously tied for the Europa League either. So there's a massive opportunity for Spurs, and the good thing about the Berahino deal is that the price hopefully would have substantially come down to what it was, the price that we were being offered in the summer. So I think the most important thing here is if we are going to do the deal, for God's sake, let's get it done early. Let's not drag it out to the 31st of January. And if we can't get Berahino and Pochettino's changed his mind and he isn't what he wants, then let's make sure whoever we bring in, we're going to bring the guy in fairly quickly so it doesn't disrupt the squad. I think the most important thing is for us is that it has to be the right player that we're bringing in and not just anybody, because the squad we've got is very, very good at the moment, and the last thing you want to do is upset the morale.
Yeah, well said. And, let's hope, as you say, as Jace says, that we can get this done early, and as opposed to previous seasons, leave it dragging out to the last day of the window. And I think probably in all parties' interest that we do get this one done early. I think West Brom want it done early. I think we probably do to get him in for the Europa League phase, which starts pretty soon. So, let's hope that certainly happens. And just to wrap up on segment, lads, all looking very, very good, isn't it? All looking very, very positive. So let's hope long may it continue. Things looking good. Listen, lads, we're going to move on to the next part of the show tonight, which is, of course, our Talking Point feature, our new segment of the show where you guys out there get to have your say on all things Spurs. Every week we'll come up with a topic to be debated. This week, the topic which we put out there on our social media, guys, was which former player from the last 4 or 5 years that Spurs have sold would you like to bring back to the club? I'm not exaggerating here. There's loads of responses, and the lads have got some of those for us. We've had to take a selection, if you like, a fair selection of those responses. I tell you what, let's go to John first up.
We've got the first one is Dr. Dominic Cooper at Dr. Dom Cooper. Sorry, I'm greedy, Modric and Bale. I'm pretty sure we're going to have quite a few people that say those two. e-Spurs USA, that's at E_Spurs_USA. Bale without a doubt. Imagine having a world-class player like him to work with Poch, even though Poch already has Dele Alli. And we've got Jim Bob, which is at James Gerbils. Soldado, Paulinho, Cabal, Adebayor, Stambouli. They're all excellent players we really could do with right now.
No hint of sarcasm there at all.
Well, I'm hoping there's a hint of sarcasm there. Otherwise, James Gerbils, you need seeing to, mate.
I feel sorry then for Etienne Capoue because he obviously don't rate him.
We've got Andrew Harker at Andrew_Harker. Timothy Atuba. Oh. I used to love those step overs on the edge of our box. Still having nightmares about him. We've got Pete Richardson at Medium P83. I'd actually bring back Pavlyuchenko. In my honest opinion, one of our most underrated goal scorers, and goodness knows we needed them from him. That's a fair point. And I loved Pav as well. He was a good player. And we've got Baggins at Will Green. Jermaine Defoe always scored and we need a striker. Can't argue there either.
No, you can't. I mean, Defoe's a great shout. Record European goal scorer. Pavlyuchenko. Lads, any of you guys take Pavlyuchenko back?
I don't think he'd be a Poch player, though. That's the only thing. I think we're trying to think practically about this and trying to think about players that we could actually re-sign or, maybe could have kept the hold of for a little longer. And I think the only thing is with Pav now, if you're looking at him now, he's 34, not exactly tearing it up in Russia, so maybe not. But with Defoe, maybe another year, maybe of him as a Premier League player.
We also said beforehand, Robbie Keane's the type of player that you could have seen fitting into Poch's current way of working hard and being able to come in from wide areas and things like that.
Yeah, and he's certainly got the skill as well, hasn't he, Jace? Bundles of skill to fit in there. What have you got for us, Jace?
We got Tony Leggett at Tony1965 UK. Van der Vaart said his biggest mistake was leaving Spurs. Quality player, sweet left foot. Joval Albi at JAUBEE. Berbatov, with him alongside Kane, we'd destroy the Premier League.
Wow.
Although we did say probably Berbatov's heat map and coverage of an area probably over the course of a season is what Poch is probably looking for from one game. But yeah, what a quality player for sure. Hype Malt at Hype Malt. Van der Vaart, we are sorely lacking experience, leadership and a creative force that can also score. Aditya at Aditya 35. Bell, Ericsson, Bell and Lamella Son behind Kane would be excellent. And Logan at Nabil Bentaleb said, got to be Gareth Bale. The man's a match winner, can do nothing special for 90 minutes and then pull out a wonder goal.
Yeah, some great points. Bale, that goal against West Ham springs to mind, doesn't it? When you see a player like that, as he says, can do nothing for 90 minutes and then can spring up with a wonder goal, that's when you know you've got a special player on your hands.
I have to say, with Bale in the side, I wouldn't be talking about us as title contenders. I'd be saying, we'll win it by Easter.
Well, yeah.
I'd be looking for the date, trying to book me flight back to when the bus ride's going to be.
Getting those Champions League tickets booked. Is it that close, do you think, Jace? I mean, are we, at the moment, potentially one quality player away from being a real title contending side?
Well, I think if Bale was in this side, definitely Bale in this side, we'd have more than the 35. But I think certainly a couple of those draws, particularly the 0-0s with Liverpool and Everton at home, I think, he'd have pulled something out, at least one or two things in those games that would have given us those extra points. I think I'd certainly put Bale in this side, would say, I think we'd be top of the league for certain by now. Yeah,
it's a fine line, isn't it? And you kind of think back to the likes of the Van der Vaarts that have been mentioned there. John, I mean, Van der Vaart, although he was only there for a short amount of time, a season, he became a huge fan favourite, didn't he? And dare I say it, another window surprise like him would be very welcome, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. I remember, that deal came from nowhere, didn't it? And to think we could have landed a player that good for that little amount of money. I mean, the thing is, you look about nowadays, and there ain't really anyone I don't think that really could be his equivalent this time, especially January. It's summer windows are a little bit different, but yeah, it would be amazing to get someone like that back in. And I think the reason that he weren't there for long, like you said, he was only there 2 years, but there's still so much love for him, and I think he's still young enough. Probably he could have done a job at Tottenham for another year or two for sure. And I think he's the kind of player that we could do with, really. I know we do need another striker, but it just makes things easier for the striker if Eriksen's performing, and if he's not, we can get someone to come in and put a bit of pressure on him. And Van der Vaart certainly would have ticked those boxes for sure, and he did score a fair amount as well, didn't he?
He certainly loved playing against the Arsenal, didn't he? That's for sure. So,
he did. Bless him.
Just for that reason alone, I think I'd have him back. Rick, what you got for us, mate?
I've got at Des Legend, who also agrees with Bale. We don't have speed right midfield. We've got Wild Brian at Wild Brian 79, who says Rafa Van der Vaart because he's a genius. Can't really argue with that. We've got Harsh Mishra at Harsh M, who says Soldado. Feel he'll prove himself if we give him one more chance. I do love Soldado. Can I just say, I think it's fantastic the way Soldado is still following the club. If you go onto his Twitter, he's still avidly watching the Spurs games. I have to say, as much as it didn't work out for him, I can't put into words how great it is to see one player still following the club the way he does. It's such a shame because I think with Soldado, I don't think anybody wanted the move to work more for him. I really wanted it to work for him, but I just think, unfortunately, it's just one of those moves that just was never meant to happen, just never worked out.
It was the case, Rick, wasn't it, of wrong player, wrong league at the wrong time?
Yeah, wrong player, wrong time. It's just, unfortunately, one of those things. It looks so right on paper, but it was just so wrong on the grass. We've also got Jack Cole at Jack Cole Golf, who says Luka Modric, the most talented central midfielder we've had since Gaza. And then we've got Just JP at Just JP 85, who says Kyle Naughton. I miss throwing my remote at the TV. And I think many can probably echo those sentiments.
Bless him. Bless Kyle Naughton.
Poor Carl Norton.
I mean, interesting point that you mentioned there, lads. Would you agree that Modric, our most talented midfielder since Gaza?
I mean, I personally think he just made the team tick. I just think even now, as well as the Spurs team is, I still think we'd find a place for him. I think he's that great. And it made me laugh that when he went to Real Madrid, some of the fans didn't take to him straight away. And even at Real Madrid now, he's irreplaceable in terms of when he's out the side, they miss him. I just think for me, he's still arguably one of the best players Spurs have had in my generation. I just think the way he made us tick as a team was just. You noticed him when he left Spurs? It's taken a considerable while for us to say we've finally got over it. I think you'd say this season, just based on how well Dyer and Dele Alli link up, that's the correct balance. I mean, before this season, you'd probably say we were still missing Modric.
Yeah, I mean, Jace, great midfielder Modric, wasn't he? Didn't score that many goals. We mentioned before it didn't really matter because he put in fantastic shift. He was more about building the moves than scoring the goals. Can you think of anyone in there since Gaza that would be better than Modric?
Hard to think of anyone since Gaza. I mean, Modric, the boys are right. He assisted the assist so much, didn't he? And he was one that had great control of the game. The way he just take the ball off the two central defenders, set the tempo of a game, wouldn't he? You could give it in any area and he just keep control of the ball. But we're starting to see, Dembele's also been strong at that, hasn't he? I just think, you look at the current side, and as Modric, without a doubt, is an absolutely fantastic, world-class player, and he shows that week in, week out at Real Madrid. But if you put him in the side now, we wouldn't see Dele Alli or we wouldn't see Moussa Dembele in the side, whereas Bale would just head and shoulders stroll into that side even now, I think.
Yeah, it's a great shout. I think, lads, that we're pretty much all agreed Bale is the one we'd probably bring back. Any other shouts?
Me and Jace were talking before, and I thought no one would say the suggestion I'm about to say. But going by players that are still active and would still fit into our team, I would go for Gylfi Sigurdsson, because he's that number 10 who could put real pressure on Eriksen and would give him a kick up the backside, and he was such a good player anyway in his own right. His set plays were always very good. He was technically a very, very good player. I just think it was a bit of a surprise really that Pochettino let him go without giving him a real crack. And I think for the same reasons as well, I think Lewis Holtby is another name that I'm surprised didn't crop up more, because the way he was, high energy, all about effort and application, and I think he would have been really would have been a Pochettino player, and he had a good pre-season under him, and then we let him go. So I'm not really sure.
Still surprised, Johnny, what happened. To be honest. Yeah,
me too. I think at the time, I know we had other options, obviously, but the thing is, I think the players that were brought in at the sort of time that Holtby left, they've all gone now as well. Players like Paulinho and Capu and Stambouli, so they never worked out. I think if Holtby had stayed and we'd have saved our money on one or two of them others, then he may have played a bigger part in the meantime and would maybe still be at Tottenham. But on the other hand, he's not exactly tearing it up for Hamburg. They're having another terrible season in Germany. So I don't know, maybe we did dodge a bullet, but I just think that, looking at the team now, there's not really any obvious weaknesses. It's just about squad filling, really. Like we said, we need another forward. But as far as the starting 11 goes, I think, it's only really Bale. You'd have to say Modric as well, but no one else would come in and be a definite starter of the players that we've let go in the last 5 years.
Yeah, the only one that is a little bit before the 5-year limit that we've set on this one, but the only one I can think of just a little bit previous to that, going back maybe 10 years ago, was Teddy, to be honest, just because of the brain that the guy had, the footballing brain. Didn't have any pace at all, did he? But, you could see a move, 2 or 3 kicks ahead, couldn't he? Just fantastic. And I think,
you're right, for sure. But I just think that I still think Harry Kane is very similar in as much as, he can play that number 10 or he can play up front. And I think, again, Kane is like Teddy in as much as the first yard was always in his head. And he ain't a whippet, Harry Kane, but he don't ever think, he's slow. And I think that's because a lot of the time, like the goal against Norwich, just where, he got the ball out of his feet, half a yard and bang, it was a goal. And I think he's just... Teddy was obviously he was a class player, and I think at the time he was around, there weren't really anyone else around like him. But Teddy definitely wouldn't have been able to play up front on his own. He never put he weren't exactly a workhorse like Harry is, and Harry obviously still got the energy level and the skill to be smashing the ball in the net. I think Teddy would be on his arse by half time if he had to play. Even in his pomp, at his prime in terms of fitness, he wouldn't have been able to cope with this Pochettino team. That's why I went for Gylfi Sigurdsson, because I think he would be able to, and he would still be a useful part of the squad for sure. What
a great debate though, and you can continue the debate, guys out there. Get in touch with us on our Twitter at @e_Spurs and let us know what you think. Your favourite Spurs players from the past, present. Let us know what you guys think. So looking at next week, the talking point for next week, don't forget to add your hashtag, guys. It's hashtag e-SpursTP, all one word. And we want to know for next week. Ricky, you've got the subject?
I have indeed. So the subject is for next week. Obviously, this time next week will be the opening of the January transfer window for 2016. The question we want to ask our listeners is, who would you like us to realistically sign this January transfer window and why?
Great one to get your thinking caps on. Ricky's mentioned the important word there, realistically. So get your thinking caps on. Let us know. Hashtag eSpursTP on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll read the best of those out on next week's show. Moving on to the final subject of the night, lads, the Everton game on Sunday. Of course, Everton going through a sticky patch again this season, aren't they? Lots of optimism at the start of the season. Lukaku in great form, but they're still hovering around mid-table, 11th place in the league. So, not in the best of form. And I think I'm right in saying they've only won 1 out of their last 5 games. So, tricky old time for Everton at the moment. Let's go to John first up on this one. Everton away from home, always tough away there, isn't it, John? One of the most partisan crowds you can possibly face at Goodison.
Yeah, it is a tough place to go, definitely. I just think with their sort of current run, and it don't really make much sense really. You'd have thought with the manager they got and the team they got, they should be doing a lot better than they are. I think I read earlier that McCarthy's doubtful for the game, which is a bonus for us, although Gareth Barry's been playing really well this season. Obviously Lukaku's been banging them in, but I just think if we can, especially if we get if we score first, I think I'd always back Jan and Toby to keep Lukaku quiet like they did earlier in the season at White Hart Lane. So I know after the last prediction I actually made was ridiculous and we lost to Newcastle, and the following week I said, again, when you asked me for my prediction against Southampton, I said there'd be 90 minutes plus stoppage time, and we've won every game since I said that. So I'll say again there'll be 90 minutes plus stoppage time, and just hope that Spurs come out on top. And I don't see any reason why not. I think going to a team like Everton, where they are going to play, when they're not going to sit there for 90 minutes and try and get a point. That a lot of the time we've seen this season, that plays right into our hands when teams do try and play. And if we can, we can pick them off, and I'm pretty confident about this one. And I could definitely see an away win, that's for sure.
Jace, do you share John's optimism?
Yeah, we won at Everton last year, didn't we? If I remember rightly, was it on the last day of the season? Yeah. And actually, our Premier League record at Everton, I think we've probably won more times at Everton in the Premier League than any other away ground. We actually went through a period when we had a really good away record up there, and then suffered a little bit in the last couple of years. Although, as I said, we got the win last year. I think there's certain key battles, isn't there? Without a doubt, the Lukaku against the 2 Belgians. I'm sure everyone in Belgium will be tuned in to see what happens in that game. Barkley in midfield, against Dyer and Ali, that will be another one. And Deulofeu is the one player that you've perhaps really got to keep quiet, because as much as Lukaku's been banging goals in, Deulofeu looks on his day a real handful, though he's probably still one of those players that one day looks excellent and the next day does absolutely nothing. But they've been conceding a lot of goals this year, Everton. Stoke have just gone there and scored 4. So I certainly think they're a team that we can get at. And I think it's one of those days where there'll be chances at both ends, and it'll be up to who takes the most of them.
Rick, Jace has just mentioned there Stoke have come away from there with a win. Do you think there's maybe a sign in that we maybe need to play a more physical game against Everton?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I can say this year in terms of away from home. We have got it right on more occasions than we haven't. I know obviously we've only lost the one away from home, which is the Man United game. This one I do think will be a bit of a battle. I have picked up this week with Everton that there seems to be a bit of a fan revolt going on there with Martinez. Obviously had that fantastic season where they nearly achieved fourth, and then after that, obviously I think a lot of people are kind of viewing it as though he's got a great attacking team there, but defensively, like the boys have picked up on, they're conceding a lot of goals. And I think the key for us will be is that if you asked which two centre-backs you'd want to kind of keep Lukaku quiet, you would say Toby and Jan, because number one, they should know him very well, obviously on being duty in Belgium. So they should hopefully know him quite well. If we can keep him quiet and we score the first goal, again, I see it's a game where we can go and win it. But yeah, I think you're right, Andy. It could prove to be very much a physical battle, but definitely a game that we're more than capable of going to win, because Everton at home, they've shown themselves to be quite frail at times, although they've got the great impetus of Deulofeu on the attack, and obviously Barkley. There's definitely obviously weaknesses there in their team, and we've just got to obviously on the day make sure we can try and manipulate those weaknesses, because it's definitely a game that we can go there and try and get all 3 points.
It's going to be a fascinating game, isn't it? And when you think the results that have gone our way this week, Spurs can get a result up there, then maybe, let's dare to dream. Maybe we can then start thinking. I mean, there's a 4-point gap now, isn't there, between us and Crystal Palace? At one point, they were catching up. They were sort of level with Spurs, weren't they? But over this Christmas period, we've won both our games. They've drawn, I think, both of theirs, which has allowed us that 4-point lead, giving us a nice little buffer there between us and fifth place. If we can really kick on now and cement that top 4 place, and as Jace mentioned a couple of weeks ago, a third place would be lovely, wouldn't it? Because then you've not got to worry about the qualifiers. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe, I'm daring to dream, as we said earlier. But it's lovely to do so, isn't it? Anyway.
It's quite handy to have the game Sunday as well, isn't it? I know that works for both teams, but it does give us the extra day. And at this time of year, I think it's the one time when you do look at the fixtures and when, like West Ham played late, didn't they, on Saturday or on the 28th. I can't even remember what day the 28th was now. And yet they play early on January the 2nd. Theirs is the first kick-off on January the 2nd. So, you look at us and you think we've got an extra 28, 29 hours preparation time than West Ham have got between the two fixtures. Yeah,
it's strange, isn't it, not playing on New Year's Day? Because it's one of them fixtures you look forward to on New Year's Eve. You're thinking ahead to the next day, the next day's game. But as you say, it's great to have that extra days, and we deserve it. If you think that we only played with a day's rest over Christmas, didn't we? Whereas some teams got a couple of days rest. So you might say it's a deserved rest. I tell you what, let's finish up, lads, by going across the board and getting the predictions. John's already sitting nicely on his fence there. Let's go to Ricky first up.
I can see there's going to be goals on both sides, so I'm still going to maintain my stance of recent weeks. I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs.
2-1 Spurs. Go on, John. You going to give us anything different, mate?
Oh, all right, I will. I reckon there'll be more than 3 goals in the game. I'm going to go Everton 2, Spurs 3. I think it's going to be a 5-goal thriller. Spurs to come out on top. A
5-goal cracker at Goodison. So certainly something to look forward to. And last up, Jace.
3-1.
3-1. And Spurs, I'm hoping.
I haven't said that. I'm not saying which way. No, I'll go 3-1.
He's not.
Because I think we will go, like I say, Everton. I mean, even Man United went there and scored 3. This season, so they have been poor defensively, which considering they got a £40 million central defender.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Baines is back now as well, so you'd expect them to have tightened up, but I mean, Baines is, if you like, more of a wing back, isn't he? So not necessarily someone who's going to stop goals going in, although he does that very well also. But it sounds
one thing you've got to do with Baines, isn't it? One thing you've got to do with Leighton Baines is don't give away those stupid free kicks that 25 yards out, because he can crack a free kick in. So you certainly don't want to be doing any silly shirt pulling and things like that around the edge of the box.
Absolutely. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a fantastic couple of weeks, and let's hope they carry on in the same vein as the last couple of weeks have done. Listen, lads, great show again tonight. Really enjoyed talking all things Spurs. I hope you guys out there have enjoyed it once again, and I should mention that we've had some really good feedback on the show in the last few weeks on Twitter and Facebook. So I want to thank everybody who's taken the time to mention us on Twitter and Facebook. We really do appreciate that on behalf of all the guys. And please continue to do so. Get on now iTunes page if you can, guys. Leave a review on there, and all of that is much appreciated. We'll be back after the Everton game next week for our first show of 2016. Let's hope 2016 is as good as 2015 has been. All that leaves me to say, guys, is have a great week, and as always, come on you Spurs.